Hey vinyl community, it's Mark here again from Sound Matters, and we're doing classic albums again. We've got a real influential funk album from the 1970s by The Meters. It's their Rejuvenation album, and it was their fifth studio album. Really left its mark on funk music, really influenced so many artists going forward. So we're going to delve right into this album and discuss what makes it so great and what makes it so memorable and so influential. Alright, so Rejuvenation is the fifth studio album from The Meters, which saw the New Orleans funk masters reach, in my opinion, the pinnacle of their songwriting prowess. But unlike most classic albums, Rejuvenation was a relative non-event commercially kind of at the time, right? But undoubtedly, it still solidified the group as one of the most influential funk groups in music history. Just before we go any further though, a huge thank you to VMP who provided the album for this classic albums feature. Rejuvenation is a recent VMP Essentials release which was cut from the original analog tapes by Ryan Smith at Sterling Sound. The Meters were formed in 1965 by keyboardist Art Neville, in New Orleans of course. The group started out as a largely unknown rhythm section behind a lot of New Orleans' most celebrated R&B records. The group featured Zigaboo Modeliste, who went by the name of Ziggy on drums, George Porter Jr. on bass, and of course guitarist Leo Nocentelli. The Meters had some serious musical chops behind them. It wasn't until the late 1960s that they began recording and performing their own music, but early tracks by The Meters, such as the unmistakable Sissy Strut for example, are now regarded as complete and utter funk classics. By the time they signed with Reprise Records and released the 1972 album Cabbage Alley, the group had progressed from writing mostly instrumental arrangements, such as Sissy Strut for example, to curating full pop funk classics complete with vocals. 1974's Rejuvenation is the follow-up album of course to Cabbage Alley, and it was recorded at the brand new Sea Saint Studios in New Orleans by Alan Toussaint. The new facility was regarded as the cutting edge of production at the time, and you can certainly hear the step up in production quality on this album. This album has a classic 70s sound with solid warm bass and crisp dry drums that so often characterise this era. Now, being from New Orleans, the Meters wear their cultural heritage with pride, and they're serving a total mashup of jazz, R&B, Mardi Gras, gospel and African music. Through all these influences, the group's tight, groove and gritty funk hooks are unmistakably fresh still. Groove forward highlights from the album include the impossibly funky Just Kiss My Baby and the now much celebrated Africa. Yet, thanks to Art Neville's vocal ability and sense of melody, the Meters were also highly capable pop songwriters. The best showcase for this side of the band is the soulful classic Love Is For Me, with its sweet melody and soaring female backing vocals. One thing that always really strikes me, I think, about 70s albums is the superb sense of musicianship that, in my opinion, is sadly lacking from a lot of modern music. But by this, I mean the free-flowing spirit of improvised jam sessions and the joy of watching a tight-knit set of musicians at the top of their game. If this is your thing, then the 12-minute long behemoth that is It Ain't No Use will have you tapping your feet and getting lost in the music. As the track descends into its long jam session outro, you get a real sense of what Neville meant when he once commented on the organised freedom he'd never felt before in a band. Their reputation as musicians grew far and wide, and while the Meters never truly achieved the commercial success that in my opinion they deserved, it's little wonder that each of the musicians involved attracted the attention of some of the industry's biggest players. Most famously, perhaps, Mick Jagger once described them as the best motherfucking band in the world. Now that's a compliment. Later on, of course, the Red Hot Chili Peppers would go on to pay them the ultimate form of flattery by taking the track Africa and putting their own unique spin on it. This was whilst they were recording with George Clinton to produce the album Freaky Styley. The Chili Peppers version swaps Africa for Hollywood and then also changes the motherland to brotherland. This is actually the first time I heard anything by the Meters, so I actually heard this version of the song before I heard the original Africa by the Meters. If that wasn't enough to demonstrate the Meters' cult success in itself, they also went on to become one of the most sampled artists in hip-hop, with acts like Public Enemy and Timbaland taking cuts from Rejuvenation in their productions. So just to wrap up and summarise, Rejuvenation is an essential funk album for anyone who truly wants to understand the genre. It's laden with grit, swagger and strut that will have you wanting to dance the night away, but at the same time, the album's pop sensibilities will have you singing in the shower and hooked for life. Rejuvenation truly is an album deserving of the title of being a classic album. So that concludes today's video. Thank you ever so much for watching. If you haven't already checked out this album before, do recommend you do so. As I say, thank you very much to VMP for sending this particular copy of the Meters Rejuvenation. It's a really nice copy of this album, so do check that out for yourself in the link in the description below. You can head over there and check it out. It's a really nice pressing of this, all from the analog master tapes done by Ryan Smith at Sterling Sound. So check it out for yourself in the link in the description below. If you are new here, then please consider liking, commenting and subscribing, and we'll see you in the next video.